Hello friends, myself Dr. Nidhi Darbari on My Education Treasure. In my previous video on discussion skill of micro teaching, I had discussed about the techniques and forms of discussion skill. Today, in my present video, I am going to discuss the factors of discussion skill in micro teaching. Discussion involves two-way communication in the classroom situation in which teacher and student all participate. During discussion, the teacher spends some time listening while the students spend some time talking. It is therefore a more active learning experience for the students than the lecture. The discussion method demands that students come to class well prepared, compelling them to think out their arguments in advance and to answer their peers' question and counter arguments. It sharpens their power of reasoning, analysis, and articulation. Exchange of ideas between several people is the best process of learning and teaching from one another. It thus provides them with fundamental skills necessary for success in any discipline. In the discussion method, the teacher motivates the students to think over some problems by way of questioning. After gaining motivation, the student answers certain questions of the teacher. In this way, the teacher develops his lesson by discussion, answers, and some responses of the students. As the need arises, the teacher himself helps the student for solving the problems. It is an active and oral method in which opportunities of interaction between the student and the teacher arise, resulting in change of the attitude, feeling, and motivation of the students along with the acquisition of knowledge. Hence, psychologically and sociologically, discussion is an appreciable method for social learning and development of the students. When to use? This method can be used by the teacher when the number of students in the class is limited. If the number is large, then use of some other method can be used in which they are being divided into certain groups. Only experienced and more able students should make use of this method. Emphasis on learning instead of teaching. Discussion method emphasizes student activity in the form of discussion rather than simply telling and lecturing by the teacher. Participation by everybody. In this method, everybody participates in the discussion and therefore thinks and expresses himself. This is a sure way of learning. Development of democratic way of thinking. Everybody cooperates in the discussion and the ideas and opinions of everybody are respected. Thus, there is a development of democratic way of thinking and arriving at decision. Training in reflective thinking. Students during the course of discussion get training in reflective thinking, which leads to deeper understanding of the problem under discussion. Training in self-expression. During discussion, everybody is required to express his ideas and opinions in a clear and concise manner. This provides ample opportunities to the students for training in self-expression. Spirit of tolerance is inculcated. The students learn to discuss and differ with other members of the group. They learn to tolerate the views of others even if they are unpleasant and contradictory to each other's view. Thus, respect for the viewpoint of others is developed. Learning made interesting. The learning of history, which is considered to be a very dry subject, is made interesting through discussion method. More effective learning is possible when the students discuss, criticize, and share ideas on a particular problem. Active participation by the students in the discussion makes learning full of interest for the students. This also ensures better and effective learning. Factors affecting discussion. When planning a discussion, it is helpful to consider not only cognitive but also social emotional, and physical factors that can either foster or inhibit the productive exchange of ideas. Cognitive factors include determine and communicate learning objectives, plan a strategy, ask good questions, provide direction and maintain focus, bring closure. Social and emotional factors include demonstrate relevance, encourage participation, make high quality participation count, and evaluate the discussion. Physical factors include creating a setting conducive for discussion. First, we will discuss the cognitive factors. Number 1, determine and communicate learning objectives. For discussion to accomplish something valuable, they must have a purpose. The teacher should consider the goals for each discussion. When the teacher can clearly envision the purpose of the discussion, it is easier to formulate stimulating questions and appropriate strategy for facilitating the discussion. Communicating the objectives to the students, moreover, helps to discuss their thinking and motivate participation. Plan a strategy. After determining the objectives for discussion, the teacher should ensure himself, how will I make sure that students meet these objectives? He should plan the discussion even if it ends up deviating from the plan. Ask good questions. Good questions are the key to productive discussions. These include not only the questions to start discussion, but also the questions the teacher uses to probe for deeper analysis, ask for clarification or examples, explore implications, etc. It is helpful to think about the various kinds of questions the teacher might ask and the cognitive skills they require to answer. Davis lists a range of questions types including exploratory questions that probe facts and basic knowledge, challenge questions that means interrogate assumptions, conclusions or interpretations, relation questions deals with asking for various comparisons of themes, ideas or issues. Diagnostic questions means probe motives or causes. Action questions call for a conclusion or action. Cause and effect question ask for causal relationship between ideas, actions or events. Extension questions expand the discussion. Hypothetical question pose a change in the fact or issues. Priority questions seek to identify the most important issues. Summary questions elicit synthesis. Some common questioning errors are asking too many questions at once, asking a question and answering it himself, failing to probe or explore the implication of answer, asking unconnected questions, asking yes or no or leading questions, ignoring or failing to build on answers. Provide direction and maintain focus. Discussions tend to be most productive when they have a clear focus. It may be helpful to write out a few questions that the discussion will address and return to those questions periodically. Also, summarize key issues occasionally and refocus students' attention if the discussion seems to be getting off the track. Bringing closure. It is important to leave time at the end of the discussion to synthesize the central issues covered, key questions raised, etc. There are a number of ways to synthesize. The next one is social and emotional factors. Demonstrate relevance is the first point. While students enjoy discussion, they may have difficulty recognizing what they gain from participating in them. It is helpful to tell students how the teacher thinks the skills they gain from participating in discussion will help them in academic and future pursuits. Encourage participation. Many issues can affect students' willingness to participate in discussion, from cultural background to preparedness to the kinds of questions asked. Some strategies that can help encourage meaningful student participation are: create a discussion climate early, require students to prepare, get to know students, model exemplary discussion behavior, create ground rules, monitor group dynamics, assign pair and small group work, make high quality participation count. We want students to participate in discussions for the sheer joy of intellectual exchange, but not all students may be motivated to jump in. Providing extrinsic motivation helpful to establish the behavioral patterns that lead to intrinsic motivations. Evaluate the discussion. There are a number of ways to evaluate discussions. For example, immediately following the discussion, the teacher might ask students to write briefly about what they learned, how their thinking changed, and how the discussion relates to other course material. An alternative is to ask students to reflect on the quality of the discussion, answering questions such as what kinds of contribution were and were not helpful, when were and weren't discussion productive, did everyone who wanted to get a chance to speak, if not, why not. If you found the video to be informative and interesting, I request you all to please give a like to the video to motivate me, share it with others and subscribe it so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get a notification. Physical factors. To arrange the physical setup of the classroom so that it is conducive to discussion. Some teachers prefer that chairs be in a circle, others in a U shape, while for small group discussion or debates, chairs must be moved and assembled differently. Firstly, what are the objectives? If one of the goals is for students to enter into a dialogue with one another, then it is important that they be able to see and address each other directly. The traditional classroom arrangement with the teacher positioned before rows of students' chairs does not serve this objective. If the style of discussion is Socratic, with the teacher asking question and students answering, then a more traditional seating arrangement could be successful. The teacher might make the arrangement of physical space. Secondly, what discussion format will the teacher use? If he is engaging in a brainstorming session and plans to write on the board, he will need to have students sit where they can see the board. If he wants students to work in small groups, he might consider how chairs and tables can be positioned so that he can walk from group to group, or have students do so if the task demands it. If the discussion is part of a group project that involves hands-on on the physical space, must be organized accordingly. Thank you very much for patiently watching the video and don't forget to subscribe.